folks, and welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a healthy dose of optimism. And I'm your co host, Seth Boyd.
And I am Megan Tierney.
And today we're going to be talking about 2019's The Lighthouse, directed by Robert Eggers, starring Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. Megan, I was very surprised to see you find out you had not seen this movie. It seems up your alley. Was I right? How did you like it?
You were perfectly correct, Seth. This was on my list, watch list forever. It was one of those, I'll get to it. No excuse that I didn't watch it. It's on Amazon Prime, everybody. So like a lot of people have access to this, but it truly holds up. Everybody that I've seen talk about it, they say exactly what I think about it, which is that it's just for me it's also very quintessential A24. Like if I think of A24, this will be what I think about. For film people out there, I'm sure you kind of like have a gist of what that means, but basically very stylized. It has such a distinct feel. I was thinking about this when watching the movie too, is just like A24 films, to me they're almost like the feeling of a specific director. So it's crazy to me that like they're all A24 films have like these different directors, but it feels so uniform in terms of style. For a lot of films, especially their like horror films, which is The Lighthouse kind of falls under, seem to have the same similar vein. And it's just crazy to me that that A24 is like a production company, right? Like,
They are a studio production company, and I fully agree with you, Megan. I cannot think of another time. I'm very eager to be challenged by film buffs of a film studio having such a singular, notable style.
style.
You know,
Yeah.
even though they're working in multiple genres, I think we tend to think about their horror movies because that's maybe
Yeah.
their most famous movies. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
Ari Aster has worked with them with Midsummer, with
Yes.
Hereditary. Robert Eggers' earlier movie, The Witch, is an A24 movie, but
Mm-hmm.
Moonlight was also an A24 movie.
That's
So
right. That's right.
it's but there's a certain style, there's a budget that is usually under 30 million,
Mm-hmm.
which is still sounds like a lot of money, but isn't when you consider how many Marvel
It is
movies
not.
come out a year.
Yeah.
You know, when you consider the ceilings raised to more like 100 with
Yes.
CGI. So like
That's
they
right.
feel very grounded in that sense. They feel limited and to be batting above their belt
Mm-hmm.
with that limitation. And I think Moonlight cost $1 million, if
Oh
I remember
wow. That's
correctly. Yeah, it
well, yeah.
was, you know, but yeah. So it's very strange, and I would love to learn more about how the folks who founded this have curated such a vision, because like I've never
That's
heard me say,
true.
well, I'm going to go see the new Paramount movie, the new
That's what I was
Fox
saying.
movie,
That's
you know, right?
exactly what I thought. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I thought. Because it's just so quintessential to like A24 isms, I guess, that
Yeah, yeah,
people
exactly.
think.
Maybe the only other thing is like Quentin Tarantino has the studio a band apart, but I think I'm not sure if
Okay.
they've produced things other than his movies, or maybe Robert Rodriguez's, or like
Mm-hmm.
um, Brad Pitt is a co-owner of Plan B, which produced
Okay.
The Departed and
Okay. Mm-hmm.
12 Years a Slave.
Oh, I didn't
So like
even
they
know.
produce good movies, you know,
Yeah.
but and I think Tree of Life, but not really movies. It's like, oh, clearly these are the same thing.
Yes.
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
that's kind of a new phenomenon too. Is like I think
I would think
especially for
so. Yeah.
like film people, you kind of know, oh, this is A24, like,
Right.
and it's specific to the studio. I don't think that happens. That like that's a very new thing that they have kind of invented, especially for me. The Witch was my first A24 movie that I remember
Mm,
seeing, Dave, which is another David Eggers movie.
Robert Eggers.
Um,
Sorry.
Oh, Robert. Oh, I'm sorry.
No
No,
worries.
Seth was right. Which is another Robert Eggers movie, the first one I saw. And how did you saw that movie, right, Seth?
I really liked it. And I think you and I were. Did you see it when we were around the same time we were in the early American lit class, where we're talking about witchcraft a lot?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
that certainly formed.
I saw it in
I
undergrad for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly, which I really liked it. And because but I can understand someone being maybe confused without fully understanding just how well researched that movie was, because it's
Uh,
immensely well researched. And
yeah,
so is The
yeah.
Lighthouse,
That's right.
for
Mm-hmm.
folk who know about maritime and uh, folklore. You know, but
It
the
feels
witch
like it.
yeah, the witch was very well researched for folklore, for folk traditions around the occult,
Hmm.
and particularly New England things. Robert Eggers is from New England, so is familiar with this stuff.
That's cool.
And
I got to give it a
I really respected
rewatch.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to rewatch The Witch.
Hmm.
For me though, this was an exciting time in film because like I know we've already mentioned Midsummer and Hereditary, but like
Yes.
this around the same time, Midsummer comes out, and this is the second movie from an A24 guy who's just done a great movie. And this movie comes out, The Lighthouse. And for me, I think both of them improved. I like both Hereditary and I like The Witch, but I think both of them did something more ambitious with their second film.
Yes.
And I mean, The Lighthouse is very extremely experimental.
Yes. Yeah.
Folks, we should describe it a little bit, I guess,
Hmm.
as we dive
Please,
in.
please do the honors,
So,
Seth, if you
yeah,
will.
let me try to get the time frame right here. This is, it's around the time of Melville, right? This is the 1890s New
Yes.
England, and it
Hmm.
is two characters. There's really only two people in the vast majority of this movie.
That's
I think
correct.
more credited, but the vast majority of this movie is just, and I think only two people have lines, William Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, and they are wikis. They are running the lighthouse. This is a
Hmm.
lighthouse on an island pretty far off from the coast.
Hmm.
So this is not, which is an important plot point. They have to
Yes.
take a boat to get there, and they're isolated on this very
Hmm.
small rock.
The Rock, as they
Yeah,
say.
the rock.
Hmm.
And Robert Pattinson is the new guy who's never done this before. Willem Dafoe is the old guy who's been doing this for quite a while. It's maybe like 45 minutes into this movie before they ask each other their names, which I did not realize until rewatching it. Willem Dafoe makes it very clearly immediately, you call me sir, you say I sir, and he refers to Robert Pattinson mostly as dog. So we
Yes.
start, it's a very hostile movie off the
Hmm.
get-go. And to your credit, I'm not seeing this earlier, Megan. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people avoided watching this during the pandemic because I mean, I
Mm.
shouldn't say during the pandemic, we're still during the pandemic, but during the lockdown.
Uh-huh.
Um, we're both from California, with the lockdown lasted a while, appropriately so. But
Yes.
the trailer has the great line of, how long do you think we've been on this rock? Has it
Oh
been
man.
2 weeks,
Hmm.
6 months, couple of days? And just the time losing all meaning when you're stuck in a place with a one other person really hit home. And I did watch it under quarantine, which
I,
elevated the experience to maybe an unhealthy degree.
too many parallels, Seth.
Yes.
I was gonna say how eerie and creepy that it came out in 2019, just before like
Yeah,
lockdown
yeah, that's
happened.
right.
You
And
watched it
it
at the ideal time, Seth, I
exactly, and then it's
think.
on, available for rent, and then now streaming, thankfully,
Yeah. Hmm.
over there. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it was a haunting movie that was of its time, is still of its time,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yes.
But yeah, let's dive into the plot, I guess, a little bit more, Megan.
Sure. I mean, where to begin? Well, I think for me, like obviously a lot of this plot has to do with like the simplicity of the lighthouse itself and like the isolation of the lighthouse itself. For
Mhm.
me, it does it so well in that it's also, I just want to say, like it literally feels like it could come out of the 18 like hundreds if film was like that advanced then, but
Right.
it just feels like a picture out of that time. It is shot in that square format ratio. I'm
I had
bad
to
with my
look it up. It's
ratios.
119:1. I mean, as much as
Yeah,
I love film, the camera shit is beyond me. So
same.
I think if you have like a setting on a DVD player, it might be letterbox or it's close to that.
Yeah.
If you watch this at home or in a theater, you're going to think it's wrong. It's not. It's supposed to
Yep.
look like that. It takes up a small square. It's not widescreen,
Yep.
but
Hmm.
it's intentional and it really works.
A literal square, yeah,
Yeah,
like old square like picture frames and stuff. And I'm same Seth, I
yeah.
ratios are not beyond me, they're not for me. And but it's obviously very intentional, like it's so
Yes, the cinematography is
stylized.
fantastic in this.
Yes. And it really creates, for me it was like the sense of, it had classic elements to it, which I think actually a lot of classic elements, which I was surprised by. That of course turn it on its head, and it was crazy to me almost that it's like this could have been made in the past, especially because it is so psychological, and a lot of the
Hmm.
storyline has to do with the characters just kind of like unhinging more and more, and some really great and like choice monster scenes if you're
Yes.
into that. So very appropriate to like sea time lore. And
Mhm.
I just thought that that reminded me of like how old films kind of draw you in, and then can get you on board to the type of movie that it is. So without giving too much away, you know, there's fantasy in this,
Yeah.
there's mermaids, there's monsters, there's all of that, but it's kind of implied throughout, and also could be implied to be psychologically induced instead of just like,
Right.
here's the monster and this is what you're running from.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do spoilers. That's okay.
Yeah.
I think we've done it
Okay.
before, but no,
Yeah, I was
but no,
really
absolutely.
trying.
It's I fully agree with you, because like this is a movie that does have I mean, I think a good old school rule is to
Mhm.
not show the monster, it's not show it fully.
Yep.
And you know, there's some debate about what's the monster in this movie. And you know,
That's
on the
right.
no spoilers, it's actually a mystery from the get-go of what's in the lighthouse, because this is where the first kind of conflict starts, is
Mhm.
Willem Dafoe's character. And you know what? Actually, we're going to spoil this now too. Both of them are named Tom, and you don't
Yes.
know that at first. And this is actually based off a true story that happened in
Oh my
Scotland
god.
or Wales, I think, where there was two wikis of the same name in isolation for a while. And that's really the only element of that story that makes it here.
That's
But that's a real
hilarious.
thing that happened, and you can imagine people kind of losing, no, I'm Tom, no, you're Tom, you know,
I know
identity.
it was a funny
Um,
point in the movie too, the
oh
reveal.
yeah,
Well, and but
yeah.
also a funny yet unsettling, which is like a lot of the
That's
humor
a
in
lot of
this.
there's a lot of this movie that's
Yeah.
like, oh, that's actually like laugh out loud funny, but also unsettling.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of this
Yes.
is Willem Dafoe and Patton just really going for it. Like they're
Right.
great in this, but they
Mhm.
do find the humor in scenes. Like there is true humor in Willem Dafoe absolutely berating
Yes.
Pattinson and calling upon Neptune to curse him, because Pattinson will not admit to liking his lobster, like liking
Mhm.
his cooking. So
Bruised
it's a
ego.
great scene. Exactly, it's a fantastic thing. And when names are first revealed, Thomas, that is Robert Pattinson, goes by a different name, Ephraim Winslow, and finds out that actually he killed Ephraim Winslow and he's on the
Mm.
run.
Yeah.
And it's quite a while before that reveal is in there, but there's kind of suspicions that Defoe's character of Thomas is having pretty early on about, like, you're on the run, what are you doing here, this isn't normal thing to
Mm.
do, but seems to have some secrets himself. I don't think the movie actually fully makes it clear, because it seems implied that he maybe killed the last person in Robert Pattinson's position, but we're mostly getting Pattinson's point of view here, which is a very unhinged point of view that the movie does not really confirm or deny these things are actually happening. Because at one point
That's
he
right.
is seeing mermaids, he's fucking mermaids, he's being
Yes.
choked by tentacle monsters,
Yep.
he's being plagued by seagulls, he's killing seagulls.
Mhm.
Which, did you read the poem in college, Megan, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner?
I don't believe so. I don't
So
believe so.
it involves an albatross, but it's by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. But it
Mm.
also involves
Oh.
this concept of don't kill a seabird, because maybe it's a soul, but
Mhm.
more importantly, you're kind of dooming yourself. And
Sure.
a man accidentally kills an albatross, which is,
Sure.
I can understand that when it does shoot with an albatross. Those birds are massive.
True.
So it's a warning pretty on, don't fuck with the gulls.
Yeah.
Yeah, avoids that. So like I think that's a theory right there, is maybe this movie is as simple as
Mhm.
Robert Pattinson kills a gull and curses them. Maybe
Yeah.
it's because he, right?
I
Yeah.
like that too. I mean, it relied a lot on lore, like sea
Mhm.
lore. That's really fun, and it's like, oh, that's dumb. But then you, but then he kills the damn gull, and all these things start happening. But it's also not like, I was really thrown by how you come in thinking that Robert Pattinson's a straight guy. They definitely like set that up, and then Willem Dafoe is
Right.
just a crazy. Oh my god, we have to talk about him later.
Yes.
But it's actually not. Like, they really do compete in terms of like craziness by the end of it. So that was really, I mean, how often do we see like straight guy versus the crazy seaman
Right,
person?
right.
But no, like that gets challenged in this a lot too by the end of it, and I thought that was really well done.
No, that's true. Yeah, we should address that. He's Pattinson's very timid when he first comes in here,
Mm-hmm.
and Willem Dafoe feels like a and I don't mean this as an insult, doing like a SpongeBob character of a sea captain, you
That's
know,
perfect.
which ends up being part of the character edge, is him exaggerating his
Yes.
authenticity as a seaman, as a
Mm-hmm.
mariner, but is really leaning hard into it, and is doing a particular nautical prayer before every meal. And
Mm-hmm.
Pattinson's being very timid and is refusing alcohol, saying, well, that's against the book. And
Mm.
Defoe saying, "You better fucking drink with me,"
Yeah.
you know, and
Hmm.
it's a hostile relationship from the beginning.
Yes.
And what's very strange about it is they reach this moment where they're supposed to be picked up after 2 weeks and the boat doesn't come.
Hmm.
And after that, they start both drinking pretty heavily and start really bonding in the evenings and strange bonding. You know, these are some of the
Hmm.
best, most wonderful scenes of
It's true.
having moments where they go from rapidly dancing, singing songs about, dancing with girls, they're going crazy, just breaking stuff and drinking and slurring their words, to slow dancing together,
Hmm.
to fist fighting,
Yep.
um, which is how most rounds of gay chicken end.
That's right. All in one night.
Yes, and this is all in one night. And these are moments after each other, and the fist fight from slow dancing is immediate. That's like one actual scene,
Yeah, literally.
and just really, truly unhinged guys stuck on a rock
Hmm.
together.
And I should say, I mean, Robert Pattinson's character deteriorated pretty quickly. Like,
Yes, he
you think like
does.
it's 2 weeks, and it's like, well, the reason that they kind of go off the deep end is because he's like, well, I can't take this anymore. At
Right.
that point, he was already like, I can't take this anymore. And they're saying, well, you're shit out of luck. Here's however long more there is.
Yeah,
And it's like, I like the indefiniteness of it because of the storm. You don't know when the storm's going to end, so it's like
right.
you really don't know.
That's such a great isolation of the first explained to Pat. I'm like, yeah, the storm might have stopped on the mainland, but they can't make it here.
Yeah, that's
Like
right.
somebody once had to wait 7 months after
Yeah.
supposedly being relieved for 2 weeks and getting like 2 weeks worth of rations. It sounds like,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm. That for me was where the kind of turn started to happen, because I was thinking,
Hmm.
okay, then where does well, and he even Defoe, you can only trust in him in the beginning if you're like Robert Pattinson's character, but then he starts to
Right.
say these things of like, well, this guy like didn't come, or like we're stranded here for 7 months, like you said in the
Yeah.
past. Oh
And
well.
and how much he's gaslighting Patterson is never unclear,
Yes.
because he seems to tell him the next day, like, "Oh, it's already been weeks.
Yep.
You've just been drunk and being an asshole this whole time. We've been here for weeks already without the boat."
Oh, that was
And
great.
it's great, and it's not clarified, you
Hmm.
know.
And he
Um,
says, "You're scaring me." Like what?
yeah, which is
And
classic, passive,
yeah,
sorry, abuser mind games with
exactly.
gaslighting, is to say you're the one who's crazy, you're being
Hmm.
erratic. Just doing a bang up job here with time with Paw, folks. Going
I
back a
know.
little
I
bit,
know. Sorry, we're too excited.
pretty yeah, pretty early on at this first dinner confrontation, where Patterson is still being very timid. He asks, "Well, when do I, you know, do the lighthouse bit of coming on the
Hmm.
lighthouse?" After being given a very long list of chores, and Defoe gets very stern, says, "You don't. You're not doing that," and doesn't give a valid reason. Seems to imply it's because he's too young or whatever, but how are you supposed to, this is the millennial challenge, how can you get a job that requires experience if you can't get experience? This
True.
is
Still
which
complaining too.
exactly, right. And so it becomes a very stark thing that the conversation
Mhm.
really grinds to a halt when this isn't mentioned, and this keeps happening whenever it's mentioning. And one point, Pat's asking, what happened to the last guy? And he says, like, he went crazy, started talking about mermaids, something I think at this point Patson has already seen.
That's right.
Whether it's a
Hmm.
dream or what, it's unclear, but we have seen him see a mermaid. And he's talking about that. He's talking about gulls, and he's
Hmm.
talking about some god thing up in the light that's enchanted. And, and this is again with the gaslighting of, like, as far as we're starting to learn Patson slowly unveiling, it's like, well, as far as he knows, there's something mysterious happened with this light that he won't
Yes.
share. So
Hmm.
yeah, what is it? And these other things have happened. So
Well,
how,
to sorry to cut you off,
no,
but
please.
even to like see, he saw Willem Dafoe's character basking literally in the light of the
And
from
like
the
naked,
lighthouse.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so he did get confirmed that something is going on in the
right,
lighthouse.
that's true.
And so then to have Willem Dafoe's character be like, yeah, this guy went crazy because but he's like, actually something's happening. So
Yeah,
all of that was
he's
just so, I think that the lack of characters in the thing like
mhm,
made it so good, because it's like you only have each other to work off of in terms of a history of this place and just what's going on, like what's going on
right.
in the present. That was just amazing.
My wife Anne likes to say partly that Satir was wrong in saying that hell is other people. Hell is no other people, and this
Mm,
isolation is truly where the horror comes
yeah,
from. And
that's
I
true.
fully agree. Those are some of my favorite horror, rather terror stories, is
Sure.
there's no one else there to help you. You're isolated. I mean, it's why I live in a city.
Yeah.
um,
Well, it's human nature.
yeah, we're social creatures.
We are. I mean, that's it.
We're
So,
supposed to be. Yeah,
and when we're deprived, I think that you start to create your own your own social gatherings, if you
yeah,
will.
exactly. You create your own rituals, which they have a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
here, and we should talk about the accents. I think
Sure.
because as we mentioned, Defoe's really doing a sea captain thing that frankly feels earnest. It is exaggerated, and it's true to the case of like he is actually exaggerating his seafaredness,
Mm-hmm.
but it is also a great accent. It doesn't feel hammy. It feels great. It's fun to
Right.
watch. Like a good Shakespearean actor is fun to watch, and
That's
the
true.
language is pretty well researched. They did start with Melville, and they did try to recreate. When I say they, I mean Eggers and his brother, whose name I'm forgetting on, who co-wrote this.
I think Max. I think
That sounds right. Yeah, I think it's
mm-hmm.
Max. So, which I appreciated that. And it did feel authentic to me. I think
Yeah.
there's, as English majors, we might note a movie that's supposed to take place long ago that really kind of half-asses the language.
Oh yeah.
And I do love Melville. I love nautical stuff. This does feel very authentic, and Defoe's doing great grizzled, salty sea captain thing, and
yes,
Pattinson is doing a thing that I love that British actors today think they like to do, doing a New England accent.
Yeah.
That like Tom Hardy in Venom. Even though I guess maybe the character is supposed to be from the East Coast, I don't remember, but he's in San Francisco and he just sounds like he lives in Boston, but I love it. And
that's right.
I don't know why they seem to be having such fun doing this, but it's really fun to watch. And
it's a really tight American accent.
Exactly. Yes. That's like I don't know where this comes from, but I love watching it. And so he's doing that with a little bit of old timiness to it. It's not quite Edith Wharton, but it's it's old school New England. And
as he derails, it's kind of like he sort of goes through a lot, I feel like, but it all weirdly works. I mean, I just Robert Pattinson is really amazing in this. Like, it's probably his best performance that I've seen of him.
I would agree
for sure. And he's doing a lot. Like he's doing a lot of like flips through this emotionally, language wise. For me, I think it kind of like bled a little bit. Not into his British accent, but just into like the craziness of like going deranged, I guess. That kind of worked for me almost.
There's a moment that is maybe like a minute long. It's not very long, but it is just both of them saying what at each other. But I just was visualizing like this might be like 2 or 3 pages of dialogue.
I know.
They're saying it so many times. I'm like, that's amazing to just get that in a script and to
I often thought of like what they saw when they read the script and they were like, yep,
oh my God.
Sounds good.
Well, apparently on that note, both Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson approached Robert Eggers after The Witch and said, we'd love to work with you. Separately. I don't think they had met.
Cool.
And Pattinson had been offered 1 or 2 other projects from Eggers and said, like, this is fine, but honestly, it's just not weird enough.
Yeah.
And so, which, good for him for saying that, because this worked out. This was kind of the project Eggers thought he'd get to eventually. It's like, if Pattinson wants to make it weird, we're going to make it weird. And they did film this on location, I think in Nova Scotia. And so there was some extreme weather conditions, and they, some of the storms are not exactly simulated. It was safe, but it was still not exactly fun to be.
And how awesome was that?
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
Oh man, the Lighthouse is great.
We're lucky enough. I mean, we're in NorCal here, so if our favorite places is off the Highway 1 to see. And there's a great lighthouse called Pigeon Point Lighthouse. Very probably from late 1800s and eerily similar. Like, it was super cool. And also it's lighthouses are really stunningly beautiful. The actual light part of it is just a bunch of mirrors and glass and cut edges that I was able to see luckily in this going to the coast and stuff. But in the movie they show it too, and it's just so I think that there's a hypnotism to a lot of the pacing of the movie and a lot of the imagery of it, while it is so crazily stormy and these horrible conditions. There is a beautifulness to the lighthouse itself. It was just so cool. So cool to see.
It's true. It's awesome feat of nature and architecture.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you do have these wonderful crashing waves down this
Yeah.
craggy rock and this lighthouse standing there. It's fantastic.
How'd you feel about that sound, like the lighthouse sound?
Oh, I loved it. Yeah.
Con- but constantly through the
I mean,
movie.
I thought it was effective. I should
Yes.
say more than I loved it.
Yeah, that is right.
Is deranging. But no,
Exactly.
I think the sound design is great in this as well,
Yes.
and very effective. And I don't know. I think sound design is maybe an often overlooked thing in movies that I think you really notice when someone does something extreme like this. And
I agree.
I love it. Oh, like this is so strange to think about. Like so much of sound design the last maybe 15 years still comes from people from the Inception trailer.
Sure.
That like French horn reverb thing. It's not actually in the movie, it's just in the trailer.
Or the classic horror film like jump scare.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's the Psycho, it's the yeah.
That's right.
So
that's right.
As we're talking about it too, we should mention John Carpenter's Halloween. He did the soundtrack that too, and it's just like a couple of notes, but it really works.
Yeah.
It's so simplistic.
It's not like iconic horror film genre in this, but it's I agree with you, Seth, because I mean I'm guilty of it too. I can overlook sound sometimes when it's just not that pertinent, but this one it really was for me. Like I noticed that right away, and I think that again when it's like about depravity, and like when you pull away so many elements from the simplicity of the movie, like the sound was pulling a lot for me. And sound included, like I said, like the lighthouse blaring noise, constant waves crashing, and like industrialism as well, like of the actual machine, which was like actually pretty crazy loud. Like you wouldn't expect it to be so loud.
True, it's really loud.
And Robert Pattinson's character is annoyed by it, or like he almost can't stand it in the beginning. It's so loud. So like that was all just, they had to almost make it a character, if you will, the sound design, in order to contribute to this like ongoing madness, which I just loved. So cool.
No, absolutely, yes, because you're right. You do have those continuous noises like that, and I think it's really interesting to have the lighthouse as part of this industrial revolution device, because you don't really think about that. You think of like a train or a factory, but you're right. There's like you have the wheels and gears that we see a little bit of, and it's this crazy loud sound. And I don't know if that's exaggerated. I haven't been in a lighthouse. I've you've driven near them, but we're used to the lighthouse like on a postcard or something. Or
I know,
we're not used to it being loud. So. But also, I think some of the most upsetting uses of it too are like the violence is pretty few and far between in this movie. But folks who don't want to see animal abuse, not that an animal was actually abused, but there is a scene of Pattinson killing a gull that's surprisingly violent and brutal, and the sound of it being hit is gruesome. It's truly, really fucking disturbing. It's and again, it did remind me of Psycho. Megan, have you seen Psycho, Megan?
You know what? I've seen like
You've seen the shower scene, right?
I've seen the most important scenes of Psycho that you need to see without seeing the whole movie.
Okay, it actually is great. We should watch it sometime. But you probably know this, like the sound they get for the stabbing is stabbing a cabbage, a wet cabbage, and that's how you get those really wet and gross sounds that stick with you, and it's
the blood with chocolate syrup.
Yes, exactly.
That's all I remember from that.
Yeah, but and it works really well, and so this is a similar noise to that cabbage being stabbed. I don't know quite what it is. That's a bird being beaten to death. It's
maybe a
horrific.
Cabbage. Yeah.
It might be, honestly. and it's similar when eventually we're deep in spoilers here, folks. Pattinson does eventually kill Defoe, and you have a semi pumpkin being smashed with gooey sound with him smashing an axe into his head. It's you don't actually see the axe go in, but you hear the sound, you see blood splash up on his face, and it's still a lot more violent than you expect, given while you're watching an upsetting movie. You're not watching a slasher movie.
Yes.
And there really hasn't, like, there's been violence in the sense of verbal abuse has been predominant, especially after the first night of not being picked up. There's a lot of wonderful insults hurled at each other.
And I would say the violence is kind of abrupt and takes you it took me aback, because there's just so much like build up that is done so well, like you said, and on tension filled. Like people wonder if I kind of wondered going in if it was like a strict horror movie, and I would actually
Mhm.
say no. I think it's more of
Yeah.
like a little bit genreless, but I mean certainly more of a thriller for me. And then with just very tense moments throughout, with like moments of effective, I would say, gore, because I'm not really a slasher girl
Right.
myself, so
Yeah.
I thought this was like, it made sense to me.
I agree. Like this is a horror in the sense that like it'll scare you. I think it's a
Yeah,
very effective movie. But yeah, I think it's a
same.
psychological thriller,
Yeah,
with surprising violence. And like when again with the first viewing, by the time the violence was coming, I was not expecting it because I
sure.
thought we were in an older movie. And going back to the old feel of it, it does in many ways feel like maybe Universal Monsters movie, like the
Yeah,
Frankensteins or something.
I
It is
agree.
beautifully lit and it's
Hmm.
very moody, and it's
Hmm.
old timey. And so it kind of sets up an expectation of fitting within that and really breaking that with a lot of modern things,
Yeah.
especially just frankly the experimentation. It's a
Yes.
very experimental movie that has a lot of
Hmm.
unexplained things, and I loved it.
Do you
I
have?
loved how bold it was.
I did too. I mean, well, it was a. I really appreciate psychological, like, I'm trying to think of the word, but like uh,
Ambiguous.
yeah, like
Right.
unweaving is what I was trying to think
Yes.
of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like, and I wouldn't even say it's a slow burn, because the whole
Yeah.
you're entertained pretty much the whole time, and
I would say so.
the pacing is like quite a feat for me of how well they were able to like keep it going, because you would think that like, okay, they have to set all this up, and like actually no, pretty quickly early on you see like, oh, this place is crazy, and like, and these people are crazy, and like, here we go. Like, I don't know,
Right.
I really like that too. That was fun for
I,
me.
I really agree because if you strip this down to the barest points, it's the plot points are two guys are stranded on a rock and go crazy,
Isn't that crazy?
but like because there aren't a whole lot of plot things that happen, but there are
Yeah,
also so much happens in this
yeah.
movie I agree the pacing is great. On the note of plot, the ultimately after an unspecified amount of time, because we really don't know. And I love this. Even watching this twice, I don't know if Defoe was lying. I don't know if he was
Hmm.
crazy himself,
Yes.
right? And I
I
and I
wanted to get into
yeah,
if you
let's
have
hear your
any.
theory. I mean,
Well,
I
go
do
ahead,
I
Seth.
like a monster theory that the monster is real. I do
Mm,
like leaning more into it,
okay.
and there is something. I mean, let's talk about the last scene. I guess there's something in the lighthouse because
Yeah.
ultimately Patterson does kill Defoe,
Hmm.
and after having him on a leash for a while, which great scene for me. um,
That's
but ultimately, they a lot of back and forth of chasing each other around with axes. Pattinson wins, and then he does go into the lighthouse. And so another amazing sound design and light design as he goes in there, and he seems to be like consumed by the light. Like the
yeah.
whiteness level keeps getting increased, where you can't actually see his eyes, you can't see other things, and sound is getting increasingly distorted, where you just hear this very strange, distorted laugh that doesn't sound human at all. It's just so distorted.
Oh,
And then he out of nowhere falls backwards, tumbles down all the way down the steps of the lighthouse and
hmm.
dies. He's dead.
That's
And
right.
then we get a cut to him on the rock being picked to death or having his liver picked up by seagulls like
Hmm.
Prometheus.
Hmm.
I believe it's ravens in the myth more traditionally. But he's been tormented by seagulls throughout the movie since his
That's
first
true.
initial, not even killing a seagull. His first initial thing is just trying to get one to move out of the way.
Hmm.
And yeah, the last scene is him being Prometheus, I guess.
Literally. Frightening seagulls, by the way,
Yes,
or
very frightening
and
signals.
annoying seagulls.
Yeah, the most upsetting birds on screen since the birds.
Those
Um,
rats with wings attack him.
yeah, but I do like taking a movie like this literally in terms of supernatural elements,
Hmm.
and I like to think there was some kind of Cthulhu type of thing
Yeah.
happening, some sort of god that was this consuming light that was driving people mad.
For me, I mean, the biggest question I was left with is Willem Dafoe's character is just, is he real or not? That I
Mm,
really questioned it, because I
right.
mean, I do lean towards yes, but how much is he really fucking with him, and how much is he like I think that there has to be a parallel to like just losing your mind in general and like
Yes.
wrestling with your own insanity. So I felt like and there are moments in the movie where Robert Pattinson's character is, he doesn't know himself. He doesn't know if he's talking to this person, this crazy sea shanty, or
Right.
his own like demons, I guess.
Yeah.
And that was so that was really effective. So effective for me that I was left questioning, like, okay, well, is I thought that he had murdered maybe Willem Dafoe's character way earlier on,
Ah,
and was just talking to himself.
I think that's certainly a valid theory. I mean, he certainly contemplates it, and if we take him at face value, he killed his last boss for nagging him, which Defoe is definitely nagging him.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think it actually. What do you have a guess as to which point he maybe killed him?
Well, it's like that's the part that I wrestle with too in the movie. I
Mm,
was trying to remember like where it started going south, but even for me, like where it started getting really twisted and turning was just them missing the boat and Willem Dafoe's
right.
character being like, well, maybe like 4 more weeks or whatever he says, or like, or we're gonna be stuck here maybe like 7 more months. And I was like, oh
Yeah.
my, like I really, it draws you in certainly
Yeah.
to
Well,
like that
and
idea.
such a fantastic thing about their dynamic is Defoe is always pleasant in the evenings, unless they're talking about the light, you know.
Yes.
But he's saying, "Come on, drink up, lad. You know,
Mm-hmm.
this is the time for gab." Is the line, you know, like this is the time we should be hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And is an absolute asshole during the daytime, giving them
That's right.
insane orders that, like, I don't think make any sense about how clean this shack needs to be. Like, how clean can you get pale, you know,
That's true.
unvarnished wood? Um,
And he sleeps during the day
right.
mostly and
Hmm.
is up at night is what is
Yes.
established. Whereas Robert's character is switched.
Right.
Opposite.
Yeah, they have like opposite interactions. You know, it's a
Mm-hmm.
very I'm your boss, you're my slave,
Mm-hmm.
really, in the mornings, in the daytime, and then we're equals drinking and eating and
Sure.
getting drunk and swapping stories. And so it's also it's jarring for the viewer. It's also, you can imagine, very jarring for Robert Pattinson's character, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to have this dynamic with this person that's very odd. So yeah, I think there is maybe I would like to look more into that. I think there is certainly a thought there in Megan about there might be a point earlier on where Defoe was killed much earlier than we think.
Yeah.
Because I think the most, if you're gonna read this movie as logically as possible, this is just people going crazy, you
Yeah.
know, and
Mm-hmm.
all the hallucinated, it seems, strange stuff
Yes.
is just that hallucinated. Like the mermaid's not there, the tentacle monster's not there. There's a point where they recreate a painting in a shot, Hypnosis by Schneider. It's that moment where Defoe's got like the light coming out of his eyes and they're
No.
looking at him, like
Oh.
that's a reference to a painting that I don't know too much about.
Oh, good
So,
catch, Seth.
but it was
Well,
a
that was
very
such a
cool.
it was such a
It's a
distinct
great shot, right?
image. Yeah. I was
Um,
like, certainly, oh, that's so cool. I didn't even
my
realize
wife
that.
is was an art major, so she caught
Oh
that.
yeah.
But it certainly is
She
jarring. But
knows.
yeah, there's a lot of mythology in this
Yeah.
movie, both folklore stuff about like the little trinket he has of the
Mm-hmm.
mermaid, the scrimshaw. Like, I guess that was a thing for luck that they would
Okay.
have, you know, and
Yeah.
there's some beliefs around those, and his is a mermaid. And there's a lot of other smaller details that
Mm-hmm.
go over me that were well researched
Yeah.
in terms of this. But yeah, so I think there certainly is the view that this stuff is hallucinated and all these stranger things didn't happen, or they were dreams or fever dreams. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with viewing the movie that way. I think it's still a very effective movie that way. I just like leaning more into it. So I think, like you said, Megan, it's he was killed earlier, or
Sure.
the light is real,
Yeah.
whatever the light monster thing is there. And on the note of this being a movie I watched during peak of quarantine, I found it extra haunting, the idea there is this supernatural thing going on that you can't do anything about.
Mhm.
You
Well,
know,
and then, but for me, it's also like he does go to something at the end. So I really like that too,
mm,
because it's a definitive element of like, no, there is something. So like,
right,
what I mean, whatever that may be, whatever, but it's like, you're leading up to all of this questioning and wondering, and then like at the end you do have this like no, like there is something, and
Right.
maybe that could be whatever you want it to be, but the movie doesn't seem to think so, which I really like. I think it like
I agree.
plays into honoring folklore almost, or like honoring
Mhm.
that style, which oh, very, very good. I liked it.
Absolutely. And this just occurred to me, if you are more generous to Defoe's character, maybe he is actually protecting Pattinson, because
Yeah,
like Pattinson is killed when he sees it. When he goes up to the
true.
light, he cannot handle it, and so maybe Defoe was not lying and saying you're not ready for that.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything to prep him for it, so it's like maybe this is some all-consuming monster that you need to be, spending years prepping yourself to view or something. We don't know, but it certainly leaves a lot of questions to the imagination that I think are fun questions and are challenging. And how long were they there is not an answered question. And did they actually miss the boat? Did the boat not come, or did they sleep through it?
That's right.
I like a movie that has these aren't plot holes to me.
Same.
And a lot of that is the style of this movie. It's like a movie that has, movies can have plot holes. That's a pretty common thing. And I think we forgive plot holes more often than we realize. I don't think it's too fun to point them out. It's a plot hole is a problem in a bad movie. You know what I mean?
I agree.
This movie is one, not a bad movie, and two, part of the style encourages these questions and is made better by these remaining questions.
For sure. Again, I think it's like about depravity almost, like
Absolutely.
there it's so I just love and adore that. It's so simplistic, like you have to, everything is doing something almost in the movie, like we talked about, like sound, these two characters that they have, like how minimalist can you get, and everything is doing a lot of heavy lifting in this, which is just so cool. And yeah, it's quite the feat, I feel like, to
Absolutely.
I love the notion that, I mean, it just warms my heart that a lot of people can make this. A lot of people can make a movie like this, like, which is amazing. We haven't. We don't. I don't think so. Props to Eggers, where props are due. It's so cool.
Absolutely. And I had to look it up on the note of budgets. The budget for this was $11 million. And
that's crazy.
And it's so good, and it's so different, and it's so strange. And even I think even having seen The Witch and loving The Witch, I didn't expect this. Like I think if you just tell somebody we're gonna watch the next movie from that guy, don't tell me anything about it, they're not expecting The Lighthouse. Even me knowing it's called The Lighthouse and it's an isolated tale, two of my favorite actors, and I didn't expect this movie to be what it was. And I really appreciate the ambition, not just to tell an interesting story, but to challenge himself as a filmmaker while still sticking to arguably his roots of New England folklore. His next movie is not New England folklore, it's the Norseman, I believe it's called. It's a Viking movie.
Oh, you mentioned it, Seth.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see how that transition goes. This seems even more ambitious and bigger budget, bigger set pieces. Yeah, and I think we would have mentioned this a little bit in the pig episode. That might have scared me, for a director to take on something that bigger that soon. And I'm not really scared about that with Eggers. Sure. I think he's got it. I think he knows what he's doing.
Do you know if it's A24 by chance?
Let's check it out, folks. It might be.
And I know it's a release for 2022. Yeah.
Oh, it's his first step outside of A24, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
So who's doing it, I wonder?
Thank you for looking that up, Seth.
No, of course.
Yeah. He's my IT guy. he's our research.
You know what actually occurred to me, and this might be a huge stretch. So are you familiar with the general premise of The Norseman, Megan?
I think I saw the trailer for it, I believe. Okay. Yeah.
So it involves a man. Oh, it's Focus Features in Universal for International.
Interesting.
It involves a man avenging his father, who was murdered by his uncle, which is Hamlet. I remember reading somewhere, and I want to look into this. Hamlet is apparently based off a much, much older tale. I think actually might be Icelandic. And I was like, is this that tale? I don't know. Obviously, there's plenty of stories involving brothercide. I don't know about brother killing the king.
Brothercide, yes.
It's not patricide. My Greek is failing me, but I don't know if that's what it is. That might be a complete stretch. It might be a fully original script, but it caught my attention that maybe
Yeah.
this is based off that much older story. And I don't know if that older story is Viking old, but I know it's hundreds of
Mhm.
years older than Shakespeare's Hamlet. So
Oh,
just
that's
like
cool.
Romeo and Juliet's hundreds of years old too, the
Yeah.
original version, and
Good
both his
catch.
versions are better. So,
Yeah.
so I'm curious if that's what it is. Maybe, maybe not. It could just be its own script. Either way, I'm excited, and we got to Defoe again. So
Oh, I
always
didn't
happy to
realize
see that.
that.
Yeah, right.
Whoa, that's
I'm very
cool.
excited for that. Excited to see what he does next.
I'm a little A24 darling. This
Yes.
is watching this movie is a bit of a love letter for me to A24. Like I said, like I think that when you if you're a film person, you kind of like have an idea of what A24 films are, and certainly The Lighthouse like it does fall into a very typical what to expect and what is my like cream of the crop of what A24 is. So I think for this week we were actually planning to recommend some A24 films if
Yes,
you're interested.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I
so
am. You go ahead and lead us on, Megan.
sure. Well, I know that we talked about A24 is very like they're known for their horror, which is like probably their more popular genres that are getting like seen in the theaters, which is great. But I'm actually going to recommend two or smaller films that I think that people talked
Great.
about. They got some like some green lining for being good, but I think it's almost like I don't want them to get hidden by the popularness of their horror genres as well. So
Mm.
I believe I watched, this was in during quarantine for me, but I finally got around to watching Lady Bird, which was
Ah,
amazing. Highly recommend to everybody to see. It struck my heart because it was a Catholic schoolgirl story in like Sacramento, California. So suburban California, Catholic school is kind of my
picking the boxes for you.
kind of my whole life. So it was a lot of really, really great imagery in terms of that for me. And I'm sure it'll resonate. You don't have to be a Catholic schoolgirl to resonate with that at all. It was really fantastic, I thought. Such a great, I love when movies feel so accurate, I guess is the best
Mm.
word I can describe, which I've felt with that one. And then also like Boots Riley films about the Bay Area,
Right,
it
right.
just feels like a piece of home, and that would be a goal for me if I ever did filmmaking. So like that's big props there to Lady Bird. And then also I finally got around to watching mid 90s Jonah
Ah,
Hill's skateboarding
cool.
movie, which I thought was like very quintessential too to what I deem as a 24 picture, like very artistic, but also I like that they're kind of slaves almost to the setting that they're in. Like the setting is so much a part of it. We saw that with the Lighthouse, certainly.
Right.
So mid 90s is about like 90s LA vibe, obviously,
Mm.
and the skateboard culture. And it felt really, it actually hit home as just like a California girl to me too. So like that was really cool. And it kind of like delve a little bit into hip hop culture, which is important to me growing up as well. So like I'm just pretty amazed by how well A24, I don't know if they're doing this intentionally, but they seem to pick movies that it's like it's very important. The setting is and location is almost as important. It's almost a character for them, and
Right.
I'm all about that. I want to see more of it, basically. So highly recommend those two if you want that kind of period piece style of more modern period pieces.
That's fantastic. I need to check out both those. Greta Gerwig did Lady Bird, right?
She did. You'll love
She's
it, Seth.
fantastic. I'm sure I will. I loved
Yeah.
her adaptation of Little Women.
Hmm.
Um, I think I've seen most
Us too.
adaptations of that movie, and I love hers the most.
You may
Um,
like Lady Bird a little better almost
okay, I'm
than little
excited.
than Little Women.
But yeah, I'm very excited to see that, and I mean, Sacramento is not a town people make movies about,
I know.
even though it's the
That's what it
capital of
is.
California,
Hmm.
and I love that, and she's from there if I recall correctly, and
That
so
is. Hmm.
I love somebody deciding it doesn't matter where I'm from, we're shooting there. The story
Yeah.
takes place there.
Yeah.
That is absolutely fantastic. I don't know if I told you this, Megan, when I saw The Green Knight in theaters here in Milwaukee, actually, we got there early enough to have those kind of not trailers, but other things that are showing. And it was a trailer for A24 movies. It was a little like, what is an A24 movie?
Oh,
Pre-screener thing showing. And I wish I could find it again. It was a pretty made for the masses. And I wish I could remember more about it,
that's
which was
cool.
maybe redundant because everyone who was going to see The Green Knight was well aware
Yeah.
of what a A24 movie was.
True.
But I really love that existed. I want to see if I can find that online somewhere and send it to
That's
you.
super
'Cause it was,
cool. Hopefully we can link it below. Like
yeah, that'd be awesome because like
below
it
this
was really
episode.
cool, and it did kind of get into a little bit of that, like, yeah, they are selective with their process. I think that's again what it is like there is a theme here
Yeah.
that's transcends genre. Part of it is budget,
Yeah.
but
True.
that's not a bad thing by any means.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
also like it's hard to say quality is a theme, but it certainly seems to be. You know,
I
they're
agree.
making good movies.
Mm-hmm.
They also work with the same directors often, which
Yeah.
is part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna do two as well. My first one is not going to be a California one. My second will be.
Ooh,
The first
okay.
one is going to be Uncut Gems.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the most stressful non-horror movie ever made. Are you familiar with this one, Megan?
Familiar, but it's on my watch list.
I understand. Like, I know people who watch much more intense horror than I do who said, I don't think I can handle Uncut Gems.
Oh my.
And I understand because this, for folks who don't know, this is the Safdie brothers who got popular with Good Time, which also stars our boy Robert Pattinson, did a movie with Adam Sandler as a jeweler who is a gambling addict and owes a lot of money to the mob, which I don't know what this is in the trailer and I missed it, but the mob person in question is also a relative. It's like his brother-in-law.
Oh, okay.
So owes a lot of money and is banking everything on getting a particular gem and selling it for a particular set amount, but is making horrible decisions throughout the movie. And it's so stressful because like you do care about this man more than I expected from the trailer, and that's what makes it stressful. You actually don't want to see this guy's life ruined. You don't want to see him killed. It seems to be going that way. When Adam Sandler is great, man, and I'm not someone who's going to act like he's great in every movie. I don't really seek Adam Sandler out. Not really my cup of tea for comedy. I was generally surprised at how great he is in this movie. Also very surprising is the basketball player Kevin Garnett's in this playing himself. This movie takes place a few years earlier. It's all involving bets on the Boston Celtics, and I can't remember what championship this was or what playoffs this was, but I guess it was very fascinating. The script is based off, I think, real games. But Kevin Garnett is fantastic in it, and I don't really know of another athlete who's been so good in things, you know, and he's playing himself, but he's really holding his own in this movie. Wow. He's very watchable. He's very charismatic. And yeah, it's just a stressful movie of a man making increasingly poor decisions with a lot of money on the line that I couldn't stop watching. So Uncut Gems is great. My second one is going to be Under the Silver Lake with Andrew Garfield. And this is directed by David Robert Mitchell, who did It Follows, which I think might have been his second movie. But, you know, this is such a departure from It Follows. I liked It Follows, and that's another low budget, simple concept that's really great horror movie that feels very A24. This is a sprawling conspiracy theory, fever dream, rabbit hole of a movie that I absolutely love that gets into crazy stuff. Conspiracy theories about maybe every popular song has been written by the same guy for the last 60 years. And actually the code of the secret empire is written in the back of Nintendo magazines from 1988. And just really, really bizarre stuff that, and Andrew Garfield's great in this as a man who's not nearly as heroic as he thinks he is. You know, it's a great anti-hero role where he's not full on Travis Bickle or anything, but he's not the hero he thinks he is. He's an asshole. And yet he's very charismatic and fun to watch. And the main plot drives from he is about to be kicked out of his apartment for not paying rent. And rather than dealing with that problem, he just latches onto this mystery, which is a woman who he meets briefly who lives in an apartment next to him, seems to have disappeared the next day. It's only been a few hours. Seems very likely she's just out of town. He says, no, this is a mystery and I'm going to solve it. It just plunges into this very strange world. And I just love that it's everything stems on him ignoring his big problem by focusing on something very strange. So it really resonated with me in this critique of this very specific critique of toxic masculinity.
Nice.
That is not the typical overly violent macho thing. This looks like, you know, in modern terms, he's a fuckboy. He's not a man of a different generation who doesn't know better. He's a more modern, seemingly woke guy who's just an asshole. But yeah, I think we've given you a little bit of the range of A24.
It is true. That is true.
So
Hmm.
highly recommend you check them out, folks. They have great movies of all genres. They have documentaries as well.
I always get excited for an A24 release.
Absolutely, yeah. And again, we mentioned, they did Moonlight, they did A Farewell, they did
Hmm.
the Florida Project. They've done some more serious films as well. They did First Reformed, which I loved.
I saw that too. Hmm.
That was great. Yeah,
Yeah.
you recommended it to me, so
That's
but
I forgot.
yeah, yeah. But it's just very encouraging to me and if you use Megan as a film fan to see, like, there's a label on a movie that isn't director, that isn't a writer or actor, that means we're probably going to like it still.
I know. I just think they've coined that kind of, like, I can't think of,
Yeah,
like we were talking about earlier, we can't think of another studio that is so distinct like that. So that's a feat in of itself that they have kind of already conquered, and people are talking about them. I mean, I know that they're like kind of memed out to be the indie darlings kind of,
right.
but it's like they're getting way more mainstream now anyway. So it's just really nice to see like
Yeah,
finance going to these films that are, we like to argue, like you can expect a pretty well done film and a pretty
yeah.
unique film experience, I should say.
I think that's certainly what it is, because it's not going to look or sound like a mainstream movie,
Yes.
and it's subject wise, it's not going to touch on familiar things,
Hmm.
and that's what's so great about it. It's not a big budget action movie. Those can be great,
Hmm.
but for lack of a better term, it's not a Marvel movie. There's not a comic, it's not a franchise, and I don't know, it's very bizarre to me that
Yeah.
it exists, and I'm very grateful.
The phenomena of it. I was just at the theater this weekend. We watched Uncharted, so, which was
Fun.
okay. It was fun
Yeah,
action movie. But before it, the trailer that we got was an A24, and and I'm dorkily like always go whenever I see A24, like I just gasp with excitement whenever
right.
I see it in the theater. But it's for like a multiverse theory movie. I wish
Was this the Michelle Yeoh thing?
I believe so. I'm blanking on the name.
Everything happening all at once or
That's
something like
right.
that. Okay, I
Thank
fucking
you.
love Michelle Yeoh. I'm very excited for this movie.
Exactly. I mean, sorry for
um,
blanking on the name there, folks,
no,
but
no,
like,
that's okay.
but
I
literally
gotta look
like
it up again.
Asian American leading
Yes,
actress with many, many other Asian American casts, full cast, and it just looks insane and actually a little more high budget, So we may be
it
seeing
does.
a bit of like and it looks crazy, like it's still very A24 esque. So that just warmed my heart too, to see like one, before this big ass action movie that we watched, that was like whatever, but then two, to see A24 get like highlighted like that, and to maybe be getting some pretty cool traction in there. So I'm looking forward to that.
No, I'm very excited for this, and yeah, it's the movie is Everything Everywhere All at Once with Michelle Yeoh. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but folks, you may know her from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, from Tomorrow Never Dies. She was a Bond girl, from Crazy Rich Asians more recently,
Okay.
and yeah, this is a wonderful Malaysian actress who is 59, who's going to be the lead in this movie, playing multiple characters, and I love that, and that's a good example of what A24 is doing, is taking international older minority star
That's right.
and giving them such a great thing to play around with, such a great
Hmm.
platform to be excellent in. And she's on Star Trek Discovery. I'm always happy to see Michelle Yeoh.
Oh, cool. Yeah. And
So
it's not like you said, like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, or Crazy Rich Asians.
yeah,
She did not get this role for being an Asian woman, and it's about
right,
her Asianness.
right,
Like,
right.
here's her in this multiverse theory, complex, like seemingly complex plot
Yeah,
line. So that's kind of what we want to see, and like I'm super jazzed about it. It was so cool.
absolutely.
Hmm.
All right, folks, we've given you your watch list.
Yes, a big watch
So,
list.
yeah, bigger than usual. We're going to be coming up soon with some more guests. We'll tease a little bit of that now. Nicolas Cage is going to be coming back to the podcast, not as a guest, unfortunately, but we're going to do another episode with a guest soon.
Mm.
We'll also have an interview with a documentary filmmaker coming up, another local man, so be on the lookout for that. And I think Riley's going to be coming back soon. So some fun stuff on the horizon. I hope you join us.
We had to have Riley back.
Absolutely. Right.
We're so excited for all our guests, and for all of you all listening. Thank you for your continued support.